Hello, welcome to the Royal Rota, your essential guide to all things royal from the past week. Lizzie's here, I'm here, we're back in audio form only still. I got a request again this week about where's the video gone, and I had to say it's still not around for a little while yet.
Yeah, afraid not for a little while, but hopefully in the future it will be back with video.
It would be safe to say that this week's edition could be called the Oldies edition, and that wouldn't be unkind because Camilla went to an Oldies lunch.
She did, and she is turning 75 this Sunday, and we've got lots to talk about around Camilla this week.
Well, I keep saying to people, it's actually really good with Camilla now that we can actually call her the future Queen Consort. I think even just by being able to do that after the Queen announced, back in February on Accession Day, that she wanted her daughter-in-law to be called the future Queen, it's kind of makes it a lot easier, isn't it, to sort of point out this position that Camilla's got coming her way. She might be 75 years old, but the big job is still to come.
I know we often talk about that with Prince Charles, don't we? That really the big job is still to come, and yet for both of them, they are in their 70s, when most people would be looking at sort of, hitting the golf course or doing lots of gardening and enjoying their retirement. Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall still have very big jobs ahead of them.
And I suppose, like the Queen is showing at the moment, is working for life. Although there are people who will tell you, and it's a point to make, that it isn't exactly work. It's not working down a coal mine, but it is work still. It is committing. And actually, we look at some of those engagements. Didn't we discuss when Charles and Camilla went to Canada? And we did, as we do with the broadcasters, every third engagement. We do one, then the BBC, then Sky. But Charles and Camilla do every single one of them. And actually, when you're 75 years old, as she turns this weekend, or 70, what's Prince Charles now? 73, I think. He's 74 in November. That's actually quite a strain on your body. I mean, I find it a strain on my old body, but they're a bit older than me.
And they are very busy, Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall. They do a lot of engagements, and particularly when they're on tours, they really pack them in. So not only do they have the travel, but then they have sort of a lot of engagements. But you talk about a job for life, and the Queen at 96, she might be doing considerably less than she was, but she is still very much working. If you look at this week, she's presented the George Cross to representatives from the NHS, and she's also been holding audiences at Windsor Castle. That's...
And no doubt keeping an eye on what her Prime Minister's up to in Downing Street after last week's shenanigans. But we discussed that in last week's podcast, of course. So yeah, let's start with Camilla, because actually there's been a few things this week. I mentioned the Oldies lunch, where she herself, we'll hear a bit of it, referred to her being 3/4 of a century old. There was a documentary on ITV called Camilla's Country Life, which is essentially following her Edit Country Life magazine. 125 years old, whatever it is, and it's had guest editors with Prince Charles twice. Now it's got Camilla. She appeared on the front page, spoke about Kate being the photographer. We've discussed that, I think, on the podcast, but this was the first time we heard Camilla talk about her stepdaughter-in-law taking the snaps of the front cover.
Yeah, so Kate went to Raymill, which is Camilla's country home in Wiltshire.
It's the home that she had before she got married to Prince Charles, wasn't it? Her kind of family home.
Yeah, and so Kate went there to take the photographs, and in the Camilla's Country Life that was on ITV, she talks about Kate's photography skills. She talked about her as an extremely good photographer. She said that they had a lot of fun together. It was very casual. There wasn't much hair and makeup, and it was done in the garden with a lot of laughs. And I think you can tell from the photographs, they are very relaxed, but I think you can tell that there must be a good relationship between them to bring out sort of the best in Camilla.
We had a lot of fun doing it. So yes, it was very relaxed, and of course very kindly the Duchess of Cambridge came with her camera. She's an extremely good photographer, and it was all very casual. There wasn't much hair and makeup. It was just done in the garden with a lot of laughs, and it was a lovely way of doing it. This is the one I know that my husband approves of. Well, I suppose that's... Well,
That's a good start.
Catherine said if anything else needed to be done, she'd be quite happy to.
So there's Camilla talking about Kate, very good photographer. I mean, it was a nice picture on the front page. I like the fact that she said, "This is the one my husband liked." Well, that's the kind of decision then. This is the one that Charles wanted, and that's the one that the one that they used.
And it was interesting in the documentary. The editor of Country Life said that when they spoke to the Duchess about who she would like to take the photographs of her for the front cover, she replied with Catherine, and they all sort of had a moment.
Who's
and
Catherine?
Then the light bulb moment of, oh, that Catherine.
Ah, yeah. See, if they said Kate, they probably would have understood it more. But I still get people on Twitter sort of said she is called Catherine, not Kate, in a sort of very sort of terse way, which is true. She is called Catherine. William refers to her as Catherine, and Camilla calls her Catherine. But to be fair, I'd say if you ask most people in this country how do they know William's wife, they would say William and
Kate.
Yes. That's my answer to all my Twitter people who moan at me about this all the time. But there was also, I thought there was a very good exchange between Camilla and her younger sister Annabelle Elliot as she is now, but obviously once upon a time was Annabelle, or I've suddenly forgotten Camilla's maiden name. Shand, of course. I was going to say Camilla Parker Bowles, but that was her married name. Yeah. Yes, Annabelle and Camilla Shand, as they were at that age. Now, they went back to a house in Hampshire. I have to say, it was a grandparents' house or something.
House,
it wasn't small, was it? I mean, this house was not a 2-up, 2-down terrace house.
It was beautiful, and it was where Camilla and her siblings spent a lot of time during the school holidays when they were growing up. So it isn't in the family anymore, but she has a lot of memories there.
And she was filmed going back there, partly for Country Life, but also for this ITV documentary. Of course, we should mention Camilla's other sibling is Mark Shand, who died suddenly in New York a few years ago after falling on the ground, didn't he? And hit his head. But Camilla's younger sibling Annabelle and Camilla still remember a bit of a sibling fight that they had when they were little girls, all over a teddy bear.
This was a very charming exchange in the documentary where Annabelle is explaining that Camilla buried her teddy bear after an argument.
Buried.
And it still rankles, to quote her, today.
And Camilla, Annabelle said that Camilla only told her that she took the teddy bear out and buried her in the garden on the eve of her wedding day or something.
Something like that,
so
just before her
quite
wedding.
Quite long afterwards. So for all those years, they obviously pretended that it had gone missing or something.
It was the way she sort of beckoned Camilla across the room to talk about this incident. Camilla! You just think no one else can talk to her like that. It's a kind of sibling relationship that I thought was quite sweet. They're very close though. They talk most days, I think.
Camilla, Mark just brought up about the teddy bear, hiding my teddy bear. She only owned up to me about a month before I got married that actually she'd buried it.
Here?
Yeah. My sister and I had a bit of an argument, so I buried him. It was sibling rivalry. Yeah. Tiddy bar. Tiddy bar. Had a very happy resting ground.
Yes.
In the rest.
In the rest. You've all had to leave here. The teddy bear stayed.
In the peace garden.
In the peace garden. So what a good way for him to end his life.
Have you forgiven her?
Certainly not. It still rankles to this day.
So now we've got the buried teddy bear. I mean, what else for you shone through in that programme? I think, as I said, as we said at the beginning, even in the programme, they talked about Queen Consort, and they kind of touched on the fact that that's come a long way for Camilla, given where she was post the Diana years, and she was the sort of the mistress and all the rest of it. But I think it's fair to say that a lot of water has passed under that particular bridge, and it was, it was quite a charming documentary. And I think a reminder, of course, that yes, Camilla doesn't come from the same royal circles that Charles comes from and the rest of the royal family, but she did lead a very privileged upper class country lifestyle, and she even describes herself in the documentary as a country woman and lived her whole life in the countryside. So she has come from a very privileged background.
They talked a little bit, didn't they, about whether the Duchess gets nervous before sort of big events. She said that I think everyone gets nervous before big events. It's nature, isn't it? I take a deep breath and get on with it.
Yes, actually, talking about that, there was a very interesting clip, wasn't there, from her speech that she gave at the Oldies lunch. So we're skipping from one subject to another here, but we're still under the umbrella of Camilla's 75th birthday, when she was talking about her father-in-law, Prince Philip, the late Prince Philip, and how his philosophy was essentially to shut up and get on with it, wasn't it?
The quote was that his philosophy was, look up and look out, say less, do more, and get on with the job. And that is just what I intend to do. And obviously Philip was consort to the Queen, and she will be consort to Charles when the time comes.
Yeah.
So she's sort of saying here, I'm very much going to follow his lead and his example.
Look up, look out, say less, do more, get on with the job. I think we could all probably take a little page of that, couldn't we?
We could. And she describes...
I particularly like the sort of say less, do more. You could give that advice to many people on social media. Say less, do more.
And she described the Queen and Duke of Edinburgh as two of the most remarkable people in our country's history.
Yes. So here's a little clip of her her speech, which I have to say was not wonderfully recorded by the person from another broadcaster that recorded it, but here is the speech, slightly off mic, but nevertheless this is what Camilla said to the Oldies lunch. We'll tell you about what the Oldies lunch is in a moment, but just have a listen to what Camilla said to the Oldies in the room.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I'm allowed to call you that, good afternoon. I'm particularly pleased to be with you for the second year running. There are a few consolations to being a confirmed oldie, but an invitation to one of your very special lunches, particularly a birthday one, is surely in the highlight.
So that was Camilla speaking, if you could just about hear her at the Oldies lunch. I mean, everyone in the room probably had to turn up their hearing aids. I'm being really unkind here, but it's a lunch for old people for the Oldies magazine, and the Oldies magazine is all about being old, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
But as the Duchess says, the founding editor's phrase was a snap in our celery.
Yeah, she's used it before.
She's used that before, it's nice.
We might be old, but we've still got a snap in our celery. So, yeah, I mean, 3/4 of a century is some age. And, as we said, she's still got the big job to come. And, we see her on plenty of engagements, not even all of them. Just like we'll talk in a moment about the Battersea Dog and Cats Home. Pretty hot standing out in the garden doing that today. Well, I was a bit warm, but that was a lovely story that we've got to tell you about this puppy, which I am going to take home. I'll make that announcement here. I've just got to convince everyone else in my household that's a really good idea. But this 8-week-old puppy, we will tell you about shortly, and the chat that I had with Amanda Holden. That's still to come in the podcast today. But
the Duchess did use her country life, guest editing the country life, to highlight some of the causes that are most important to her. Battersea being one of them. She
got Paul O'Grady
involved in that. He's obviously a big champion of Battersea Dogs and Cats Home. She also wrote about, or had someone else write about, domestic violence. There was countryside champions, including her husband, the Prince of Wales.
Yeah. There was the Ebony Horse or Pony Club, the one in South London, in Brixton.
Yep. She returned to the hat maker that made her hat for her wedding to Prince Charles, Philip Tracy.
Oh, I don't know much about. Yeah, I was going to say Philip Tracy. Yeah, doesn't he still make hats for her now?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
he made some for the Jubilee, and actually in the ITV programme, one of her suggestions when they showed her all the proofs was that she wanted a different photo of her wearing one of the Philip Tracy hats, and actually in the Country Life edition they have made that change. I checked.
Some of that information that we get through from the palaces or Clarence House or whoever about what they're wearing, I always ignore, as regular listeners of this podcast will know. But Philip Tracy is a regular thing that comes up with the hats, just like Stuart Parvin for stuff the Queen wears, or Angela Kelly.
Anna Valentine.
See, I do pay attention. Anna Valentine is something that Camilla wears quite a lot, yeah? And Kate wears a lot of Alexander McQueen.
Yep.
Yeah?
Good.
Right, okay. See?
There was also a feature in...
I ignore them, but I still obviously take in a bit of information.
There was also a feature in Country Life that was done by Monty Don at Ray Mill, which I think is the first time they've ever had photographs of Raymil.
Well, as I say, because she keeps Raymil very privately.
Very
this is
private.
where she sees her grandchildren, her family. I'm sure Prince Charles is allowed on every so often. But do you know? I read a few years ago the biography on Camilla and how she would spend a lot of time in Raymil and working with her then private secretary when she was sort of carving out this role or becoming the sort of formal partner and then wife of Prince Charles. So that's her family home, or because let's face it, we say this about the royals a lot. They have a lot of homes. Clarence House in London, Highgrove, Raymil. They've got Burke Hall in Balmoral. They've got Dumfries House, and the place in Wales I can never remember the name of. No, good.
But,
you don't either. This is not
but
just me.
Raymil's sort of her sanctuary, isn't it? And it's beautiful. And she talked in the documentary and in Country Life that she edited about her love for the countryside and her love for gardening, and the Raymil grounds are absolutely spectacular. Yeah. So I'm sure she spends a lot of time in them.
Yes, and I suppose the other thing we should point out, because you were mentioning about the domestic violence thing, which is something Camilla does a lot of work on. She referred to it as the darker side of the countryside life. Rural life isn't that easy. Was the point she was making. They even interviewed Jeremy Clarkson, known very much as a motoring journalist, but also a man who runs a farm, presumably in the Cotswolds or somewhere, doesn't he? And
Diddley squat.
Yeah, and he basically was saying, look, farming is a difficult way. When you earn your living off the land, it is a difficult thing to do. And so this Country Life magazine is all about, not just one aspect of country life. Oh, wow, look at this lovely, beautiful home and fancy flowers in the garden. It's about rural life generally, isn't it? And
but it was very, it was very personal to her and her causes, her charities, her husband, her dogs. They were the frontispiece for the
Beth
magazine.
And Bluebell.
Beth and Bluebell,
Yep.
rescued from Battersea, that we've mentioned. So it was very, very personal to her, the whole edition.
Yes, absolutely. And you can go and buy that on newsstands. Other country magazines are available should you wish to buy them. But this particular edition of Country Life is out now. And actually, they revealed in the programme that when Prince Charles edited Country Life, it was the biggest selling edition in its 125-year history. And Camilla quite fancies beating her husband getting more sales.
She was very, very competitive about it, wasn't she?
We cannot tell you, dear listener, to buy it, but if you want to buy a country magazine, then I'm sure Camilla would appreciate.
Have you been out to buy your copy?
I haven't actually. I was rather hoping that someone would send me one, but how much is a copy of Country Life?
I think it's I bought one yesterday. £4.
You bought the one or a one?
The one.
Oh, right, you didn't buy last month's. You bought Camilla's one.
No, I bought Camilla's one to talk about on the podcast.
Well, you said I bought one yesterday. I mean, you bought the one.
The one yesterday.
Right, okay.
It came out yesterday.
£4.
£4 something.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, it's like a meal. Or half a pret-a-manger sandwich, however you want to put it. Anyway, we digress. So that's Country Life, and it may or may not beat. I'll be interested to find out. We should find out, shouldn't we, whether or not it beats Prince Charles's sales. Talking of people who are of advanced years, the Queen, 96 years old, and she was championing or honouring those who work for the NHS. The George Cross was being handed out by the Queen this week to those who worked through the pandemic.
So the George Cross is granted in recognition of acts of the greatest heroism or of the most courage in circumstances of extreme danger. The award recognises actions by civilians and military personnel not in the face of the enemy.
Well, I suppose there was an enemy. The enemy was COVID pandemic. The enemy was the virus. And among those who got the or received the award, I mean, you can't invite everyone in the NHS to Windsor Castle to receive it. But
no, so they had CEOs from each of the NHSs from the four nations and frontline workers from each of the four nations as well.
Yep. And including the nurse who administered the first ever vaccine, wasn't it?
Yep, May Parsons.
Yes, she gave. Can you remember the name of the lady who had the vaccine? Ooh.
Margaret.
Yeah, Margaret something.
Keenan.
Hey, Margaret Keenan, very good. I'm very impressed. So Margaret Keenan got the first vaccine from May Parsons. And May Parsons, who works for the NHS, was one of those invited to receive the honour from the Queen at Windsor Castle.
Now here's a fact for you. It's only the third time the George Cross has been awarded to a collective body, country or organisation rather than an individual.
You know, I saw a tweet from Alistair Bruce, Sky's amazing royal expert, but also he works, I never know what his position is at Edinburgh Castle, but he has he's keeper of Edinburgh Castle or something very kind of fancy, isn't he? But he tweeted that he phoned up his local GP surgery to congratulate the receptionist on receiving the George Cross. I presume he went, what on earth is this guy talking about? But he was making the point that this award was for everyone who works in the NHS. So,
that's very sweet.
I know.
But can you name the other 2 times it's gone to a collective body?
You know what? No, I really can't. If it's non-military. Non-military collective body, not in the face of the enemy.
I'm just going to tell you because we've been here a while. Malta in 1942.
Malta as in the country?
Yep.
Right.
And the Royal Ulster Constabulary in 1999.
You know, both of those things ring a bell. Did they not announce this George Cross some while ago? And I think we must have written about it then. So the Royal Ulster Constabulary,
they
in what year? 1999?
Yeah.
Before it became the Police Service of Northern Ireland, presumably.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Fun. You see, you do not just get royal news here. You
July
actually
2021 it was announced.
You actually get history. You get historical facts. Every day is a school day on this podcast, and we learn new things. There was also there's lots of award ceremonies at the moment, aren't there? Because they're trying to catch up after COVID. But Tom Daly, the diver, got an award this week. Martin Lewis, the money-saving expert, got an award from Prince Charles.
And Chris Whitty.
Professor Chris Whitty, vaccine man or science man or head of, what was he? No, he wasn't the chief scientific officer. He was the chief medical officer, wasn't he, during the pandemic? He of the Downing Street press conferences. What's his famous phrase? I've got a chart, or I've got a play the next slide, please. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
that's Chris Whitty. Well, congratulations.
Chief medical officer. Yeah.
Congratulations to Chris Whitty. Now we have just come from a really nice event, only because we both happen to like dogs, at Clarence House, I never know that garden behind Clarence House. So if you do a bit of geography here, you've got the famous mall that goes from Wellington Arch, isn't it, all the way down to Buckingham Palace, and off that you've got St James's Palace, which used to be and still is the most senior palace, isn't it?
Yep.
This is and there's a garden behind St James's Palace, which is also connected to Clarence House, which is the home, as many listeners will know, of Charles and Camilla. So we were invited there today to celebrate the 160th anniversary of Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, although technically they're in year number 162 now, because they had the 160th anniversary during the pandemic, and they've not had an opportunity to officially celebrate it in the way they did today.
Yeah, but they celebrated it today with their royal patron, who is the Duchess of Cornwall, and she was greeted into the gardens with a doggy guard of honour.
Yes.
And then she met lots of the guests, but also lots of the dogs, which were the real stars of the show, weren't they?
The dogs were so clearly the stars of the show. Now, I mean, I met you outside before we went in, and the dogs were kind of queuing up outside as well to get in, waiting for someone to let us through the gates.
And what was the first thing I said to you?
The first thing you said to me was, "This is a fantastic job. I've seen a dog that I want to take home," and it's
I got there first with I would like to take the dog home.
Yeah, exactly. But I basically came along and took over.
Just checking that. So
yeah.
Flora, who is, they think she's 8 weeks old, but they can't be sure because she has been rescued. She is a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, and my goodness, she is gorgeous.
You only have to look at either my Twitter at ChrisShipITV or my Instagram, where I've plastered Flora all over it. Chris.ship.royal on Instagram. And I was actually arguing, name dropping here, I was arguing with Amanda Holden, the Britain's Got Talent judge, who was going to take Flora home. Was it going to be her or was it going to be me? I'm not sure either of us.
I don't know
really
how
won.
I've lost this fight, given that, you know, we've just cleared up I got in there first.
You definitely got there first, but I think I came over. No, I saw the dog and thought she's coming home with me. Although I don't currently have her with me.
We did discuss at one point a bureau dog share.
Yeah, dog share.
Yeah.
But that obviously means we could never work in the same place at the same time, because Flora would need to come in.
She could be here right now, for example. That'd be nice.
Yeah, Flora could be part of the podcast.
She could.
Should we just write to Battersea and say we're just going to have Flora?
Yes. But there was quite a serious message about today's engagement as well, apart from all the sort of
the Flora chats. Well,
yes.
should we do that first? So we've told you a bit about Flora. Listen to what the Duchess of Cornwall, the royal patron, said. Don't forget, she's got 2 dogs, Beth and Bluebell. Both are rescue dogs from Battersea Dogs Home. Let's play these back to back. So this is what Camilla said. Go and get a dog from Battersea Dogs Home. You will have a friend for life. And then afterwards, we're going to play you a bit of my interview with Paul O'Grady, the TV presenter, the comedian. He has a show on ITV called The Dog's Life, or Paul O'Grady's Dog's Life. He was filming a bit of that there, wasn't he? And I had a chat with him just about his love of dogs, how good it is having Camilla as the patron of Battersea Dogs Home, but also the problem that they've got at the moment, Battersea, which is the number of dogs and cats that have been handed in after... Yes, the lockdown, when everyone got pets and then suddenly realised that they couldn't manage them. So have a listen to Camilla and then to Paul.
If I could appeal to everybody listening, all your friends, to just, if they want a dog or a cat, to go along to Battersea and find a friend for life.
I suppose you're kind of like the nation's most famous dog lover now, aren't you? Apart from the Duchess of Cornwall and her couple.
Yeah, no, I am, yeah, that's all I ever get, dogs. And, you know, at airports, you haven't got a little dog in there, have you? And I think, well, if I did have, I'd be arrested, wouldn't I? So I just get on with it.
Yeah, but surely, like, during lockdown, a lot of people kind of joined your club, as it were, and became dog owners, dog lovers, and perhaps a bit of a problem for something like Battersea.
We're paying for it now in Battersea because people got dogs off the internet, which is a huge mistake because you don't know what you're getting because they come from puppy farms, and a lot of them are ill, so you're going to spend a fortune in vet's bills. That's if the puppy survives. Yeah. And of course, they were getting dogs that weren't suitable, so they get a Great Dane puppy, not realising that this cute little puppy is going to grow up to be the size of a donkey and you live in a 1-bedroom council flat. And of course, we get it in Battersea. Yeah. And a lot of them...
Are you kind of seeing more dogs coming in, now, after the lockdown?
At the moment now, Battersea is packed. We've got no room for dogs at the moment. Really? Yeah, right. And we've got
this is lockdown dogs,
This
you think?
is lockdown, but also older dogs as well, who are really hard to rehome, especially the older big dogs who've got medical problems. You know, people are a bit reticent to take them on. And I don't know why, because they're a lot easier than puppies.
You're celebrating, 160 years of Battersea?
160 years.
A little bit late because of the aforementioned lockdown. Yeah. But you've got a good ambassador in the future Queen consort, haven't you?
She's great, because she's dog mad like me, so we've got a lot. We've got a lot in common. It's easy to talk to her. Yeah. And she's so easy to talk to. She's low maintenance, that's what I love about her. No, she really is.
A low maintenance royal.
Yeah, she is, and they're rare, and she is. And she's very charming, the way she talks to everybody. So
let's return to our conversation about, clearly I think Camilla liked Flora, the Cavalier King Charles puppy. I liked her, you liked her, Amanda Holden liked her, and we actually was in the middle of interviewing Amanda Holden
when squeaked, didn't she? When she saw her?
Yeah, exactly. When Flora came in and had I had a chat with Amanda again about the whole lockdown issue. She said that she got some rabbits during lockdown, but still has the rabbits. But how there has been a bit of a problem with the whole lockdown issue, and then you'll hear the bit in the interview when she does kind of squeal as the dog, as Flora appears behind her, and then me and her have a little sort of argument about who is going to take Flora home.
This is the star of the show.
Aren't you, my darling?
It is important to remember there's all kinds of dogs. And I always feel sorry for the sort of older, bigger ones who never get a look in because of all these gorgeous, cute ones, but they're just as needy.
This is mine.
She's mine.
I will keep you posted on who gets to have Flora in their house. Is it me, is it Amanda Holden, or is it Camilla?
So, it's a good point, though, isn't it, that she was making there about, while Flora is adorable and will probably have a home by the end of the day because, who could resist that face?
My home.
That there are lots of dogs, older dogs, that are in need of homes, and actually the puppies go quite quickly.
But they don't get many puppies, they say, actually. Most of the dogs are like older ones. Actually, there was one really old dog there whose owner had died, and the dog barely ever went out because the owner was housebound, therefore the dog was housebound, and it looked quite sort of petrified about what was going on in the palace garden. So
I was quite a big fan of 7-year-old Reggie, the Labrador too, who was given some doggy ice cream and only it was tucking into that with quite a lot of enthusiasm.
Doggy ice cream. It's a new thing, isn't it? It's I read something the other day that
I could have done with
some
ice cream. It was sweltering.
Yeah, we didn't get offered any ice cream,
No.
but the dogs did.
Yeah.
Outrageous. Talking of dogs, the Cambridges have gone on holiday with theirs. There were some pictures in the Mail they got of the Cambridges going on their holidays, because their kids have broken up earlier, because in this country, children who are at private schools break up sooner than those who are at state schools. So their kids are already broken up and they're off on their holidays, wherever that might be. Lots of rumours about where they've gone.
Yeah, and holidays, they do those privately. We're not
told where or
told
going.
what, and even if we find out, or we tend to keep that out of the press.
And I will have to say, because I think we should say these things because of what we were told at the Sovereign Grant report recently, that William and Kate did climb into a helicopter to go off on their holiday. The helicopters they're not meant to be using very often and are not meant to frown upon using because of their CO2 emissions plus the cost. But wherever they were going in a helicopter, because some member of the public filmed them, and from quite a distance though. I don't know how the Mail tend to get. They got a whole story out of it about George skipping and Kate looking resplendent in a dress. As far as I can see, Kate looked like a tiny white blurry blob in the distance, but according to the Mail, she was resplendent. It's a funny old word, that.
But George it was a first for George last weekend, wasn't it? He had a special trip to
He's doing all right, George, isn't he?
Wimbledon men's final.
He gets to go to the football final. He gets to go to the sort of centre court to watch the men's final, Yeah, although he does have to wear a suit. I mean, what little boy of his age sits there in a sort of shirt and tie and a suit jacket? So
those are the rules for the Royal Box.
Them be the rules.
He was following them, but it was a very, very hot day in the UK. But he was there to watch the Djokovic-Kyrgios final, and he also got to hold the trophy.
I didn't see that. Did he actually get to hold it afterwards?
He got to hold it afterwards, yeah. Djokovic, who won, gave it to him to hold, and Kate was very gently sort of putting her hand out as if to catch the lid should it come tumbling off.
Well, if you want to see the pictures of George, then you can see them on our Instagram page, ITV News Royals, and we put up a lot of pictures of George. There's actually 1, 2, 3, 4 pictures of him, including that one with his screwed up face. I don't know what he was screwing his face up about. Actually, while I was on Instagram, I just noticed there's a picture of Joanna Lumley on there. Did she get an award today?
She did. Dame Joanna Lumley
now.
It's
Joanna Lumley. We need to put that up. So that's on the Royal Family's Instagram page, but I will get that stuck up on our Instagram page as soon as we can.
She was at the aforementioned Oldie lunch.
She was.
This week
yes,
with Giles
it's a very
Brandreth
royal week, hasn't she?
And the Duchess.
Yes. At today's investiture ceremony at Buckingham Palace, the Princess Royal awarded Dame Joanna with her honour for services to drama, entertainment and charitable causes. I think I have to say she definitely deserves that.
Now there
Joanna
is
Lumley.
one other bit of news before we leave you.
What is?
And that is a not possible, it seems to be happening. A screenwriter is adapting
Oh, yes.
Sam McAllister, who was the producer on the Newsnight interview with Prince Andrew. She's written a book that is out today, Thursday, called Scoops, and screenwriter Peter Moffat is adapting that, the Newsnight section into a film.
Into a film, indeed.
And Hugh Grant is on the wish list to play Prince Andrew.
Well, he better practice his lines. No, I don't sweat. Yes, I was in Pizza Express in Woking. I've never met this woman before. All those things that he will have to say in order to play that part accurately if they are recreating the Newsnight interview.
Yeah, I think you were saying to me earlier, just as everyone was hoping that this might be dying down and going away.
Yeah.
Here we are potentially.
Just they were hoping that £12 million or whatever they gave to Virginia Giuffre, with no liability, I should point out, and no admission of any guilt. The royal family were rather hoping that £12 million would make this issue go away until someone decides to make a film.
Yes.
There we are.
So watch the space. But Sam tweeted earlier, can't actually breathe with the excitement. Who should play me?
Oh, yes, exactly. That would be really, really interesting. Someone playing you in a film, wouldn't it? Anyway, so an interesting place to end. Thank you very much for your attention and for continuing to listen to us witter on about royal things. We have got some interesting things next week, most of which we can't tell you about at all, but we will have stuff to talk about next Friday because we are going to some interesting places and on some interesting things next week. All being well.
All being well.
See you then.